Hi, everyone. Jim Flint here with Deanna Bailey. We're on the podcast episode All Time High, where we talk about the market cap in the space and what's driving the growth in AI, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. Today, we have some really exciting things to talk about. It's a very dynamic space. Deanna, what's kind of on the top of your radar screen
I don't know. You just
at
seem
the
so
beginning of
excited.
2024?
You seem so excited to talk about it, Jim. Oh my God, there's tons of great things happening, right? So we're days away from finding out if this spot ETF is ever going to get approved. And of course, there's been news back and forth, right? Like, oh, we're going to approve it, we're not going to approve it, and you see the markets kind of reflecting that, right? Did you want to pull up your chart now, or?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to pull up the Bitcoin chart from TradingView. And you can see that lots of numbers, lots of arrows, and you can definitely tell that there's some volatility in the mix. You know, one thing that I want to point out to our viewers, and this is not a channel for financial advice, although we are going to approach and talk about the dynamics associated with supply and demand and investing, but I'm not a financial advisor.
I'm not either.
Okay, so we're just here to look at the possibilities and talk about what it'll take to grow to an all-time high. But as I look at this over the last year, and I've not seen that, if anybody finds this, they should share it. But you can see that somebody has gone out and in the future drawn in what they think is going to happen to the Bitcoin price. This is
Oh,
not a
that,
gadget that I put on
that's
any of
trading
the,
view.
yeah, this is TradingView. And I don't know how I got this on my computer. And I'm telling you, if I click around for Litecoin, that's not there. ETH, it's not there, right? XRP, XLM, no matter how you feel about whatever coin it is, the only one where I see this chart that tells me within TradingView, and I don't know if it was a programmer or a developer, but somebody believes this deal is going to the moon. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, of all the projects, right? It's Bitcoin is the least controllable of all the projects, of all the decentralized currencies. Bitcoin is the only true decentralized, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Completely where the software runs the program.
Yep, software. Yeah, because who do you go after? Who are you going to go arrest for Bitcoin?
I don't know. I
I
don't
know.
know.
Yeah,
There's the
I don't
the
know.
Satoshis
The
are out
Satoshi.
there.
Yep.
And whoever Satoshi is, you can also see, and this is Bitcoin over the last week, and there's a lot of volatility, as always, in the mix here. But I think there's some interesting things going on with the mainstream media, and not even with the media, the crypto media, for lack of a better word, because it fell off a cliff here earlier this week, and it had everything to do with the spot Bitcoin ETF. Let me share you a little bit of that. What's your take? While I pull up that particular screen, we're going to walk through some of that history.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting when I heard it. I was even more interested to hear who said it, but it held weight. There was validity to it, and you saw the market react to it. And so you know, when people come out and they make accusations or they say things, it just goes to show who knows if there's any weight to it. And we just had one thing say yes, it's going to come out, and another thing say no, it's going to come out. Who knows which one is right? But both are equally bought when it's told through the media. So that just shows the power the media has.
It really does. And in this case, and I showed you on the Trading View, this is on Coin Market Cap as another resource for people that are interested in the space. The thing that drove this activity wasn't even the media. It was the media picking up on a report that was released by Matrix Port. Here it
Yeah.
is. Somebody came out with an opinion that the SEC would reject the Bitcoin spot ETF. And what happened? Bloomberg picked it up. A few other locations picked it up. And all of a sudden, we have not just a Bitcoin crash, but a market crash. I didn't see that one coming, but you should know that the market participants are going to do what's in their best interest. Let's go back and travel in time a month ago. Do you remember this?
Of course, Mr. Jamie Dimon always chiming in on how he feels about crypto.
And I think it was a carefully crafted conversation between Mr. Dimon and Senator Warren. Yes, I think that comes up. And I just love this quote. I don't like to read from it, but I think we need to. When it comes, he said this, when it comes to banking policy, I'm not usually holding hands with the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar banks, but this is a matter of national security. Sorry, that's what Senator Warren said. And he just came back with, I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc.
Of course, because it cuts into his bottom line. He hasn't figured out how to make money off of it yet. That's why.
Well, Deanna, I even think that he's probably saying these things to bring money to the bottom line for JP Morgan.
Of course, yeah,
And,
yeah, of course, right.
I think they're trying to move the market. As you look, let's see, there is evidence to me that they have the authorized participants that are listed. So when BlackRock is pushing forth their ETF, there's information available in terms of who are the investors going to be. Often the investors are financial institutions, and JP Morgan is one of the ones that are on these authorized participant lists.
The price.
So Jamie's in the game.
I wonder once it goes through if he'll be pro crypto then. Now, will he? Because he's flip flopped a couple times. It's not just once or twice that he's done this. He was against it, and then he was for it, and then he was against it. It's kind of just whatever serves his purpose.
Yeah, and I think his purpose right now is to drive the value down.
Yeah.
And then at the right time, invest the capital and, I mean, participate in the market volatility to the benefit of his organization.
Yeah, I worked for a cryptocurrency at one point, and we had gotten on an exchange, and I remember, I think in one day, somebody pumped like 20 or 60 million into the market and bought with that coin, and it went from $3 to $15 in a day. It was like the best thing. Literally, that was my exciting part of crypto, was because I kept spending it, and the more I spent it, the more I had, and it just wasn't making sense to me. I was like, this is the best money ever. And so when you get those, it's great, right? The problem is, that's the volatilities. It goes in. Now, in order for it to stay up, it kind of has to keep that momentum. That has to trade back and forth that much, right, to keep that dollar value. Or the scarcity. Scarcity is the other thing that actually brings the dollar value together, right? And we talked about this year, it's kind of the perfect year for this storm that's brewing of institutional money that's going to come in through the spot ETF, and then the halving, right? Which is one of those things that creates the demand.
And, I totally agree with you, and would add to it one other thing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is at an all-time high. And so as the happenings and the growth in the stock market have ironically coincided at some level. And so it's almost like you can think of the Dow Jones spilling out a little bit into more diversified assets like cryptocurrency with higher risk tolerance, because people have done well with their investments as you reach that all-time high. And maybe you can even talk about this as Bitcoin potentially, right, with the spot Bitcoin ETF, we're going to increase the dollars that are being invested at the same time that we're going to be reducing the supply, which should drive the price up.
Yeah.
Now, as Bitcoin historically, they reach new all-time highs. That's the name of this podcast. It spills over, but then there's kind of this altcoin season where the run takes off there. Are we setting up in 24? What's your take on what you've seen before and how it sets up, not financial advice, for 2024?
Not ever. Well, first let's talk about what the halving is, right?
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, the way the code was written, it cuts its supply in half. So the amount of money that the miners get paid every 4 years gets cut in half. And the purpose of this is to make sure that a finite amount of Bitcoin is ever created. So 21 million Bitcoin is all that will ever be created. There will not be 21 million and one. There's not going to be 21 million 0.2, right? It's 21 million. And so it's calculated to the day of when this Bitcoin, when the last block is actually going to be done and when all the Bitcoin is going to be out. So whenever you have that scarcity, that introduction of, oh, the supply is going to go away a little bit, you create that demand, right? And so now you have the less supply, like you said, the institutional money. If you're in there when it happens, I mean, you could potentially see a 3x this year. And this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you you will. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm saying that the market potentially could see 3 times the amount of growth just from those two interactions this year.
Yeah, and as you look at the happening as we get further out, my understanding is there's like 19 million Bitcoins that have already been produced. So it makes it more difficult for them to produce more Bitcoin. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, it does. And that's the point, right? So every time the block is mined, some Bitcoin is emitted. This is just controlling how much of that is actually done. And here's another interesting point. The more it's spread, the more people who hold Bitcoin, the harder it is to manipulate and the harder it is to control. Once you start seeing a flow of Bitcoin going to one single entity or person, you're going to see something that's going to be much easier to manipulate. The price is going to drop. You won't have that. It'll be interesting. So that the institutional money, in order to continue to make money, will have to keep exchanging it back and forth. That's the only way. It doesn't. Bitcoin doesn't make money from going and sitting. Bitcoin makes money from exchanging back and forth. So the dynamic is going to be interesting to see how it plays out when you take old school institutional thought processes to new school money.
Yeah, and so that is something that's going to be a challenge because the miners earn their fees when they produce new Bitcoin. But if people take the asset, hold the asset, there isn't that friction, there isn't that back and forth.
Right.
And so once you get to that upper limit, which it seems like we're closing in, I don't know. I haven't done the calculations. I'm pretty good analytically, but 19 million out of 21 million, I mean, we're 90 some odd percent of the way there. So this is setting up for a really interesting time in terms of, oh my gosh, can I buy and hold this asset? Because from what I know, the on-chain analysis tells us that many people are hodlers. You want to talk a little bit about hodling?
HODLing. So HODLing came about. There was a guy giving a presentation and he spelled hold wrong.
Okay. All
And so
right.
everybody started teasing him and was like, don't forget to HODL. But the point was, before the utility came, right, speculation is what drove the price of the coin. And so people buy because they think that it's going to go up. And then if you hold it and you wait until it goes up, you know what I mean, then you're good. The true hodlers, though, see, some people buy because they think it's a speculative market. They think that it's going to go up. Some people buy it because they think that that's should be the world's reserve currency. That they think that that will be the currency. Let's say the American dollar falls. Let's say something happens and our entire economic, everything just collapses.
Well, let's say some of that is happening.
Yeah,
BRICS is starting
exactly.
to
Yeah,
coalesce. They now have expanded by at least a half dozen more nations. I'm not sure of the exact numbers at this time,
yeah,
but Saudi Arabia is unwinding the petrodollar, which I think is pretty material. We don't want anything bad to happen to the US or to our monetary system, but we do
right.
have to recognize what is developing.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And so, you know, Bitcoin, the true people who believe in Bitcoin believe that Bitcoin will be the currency that the world operates off of because it's not tied to government, right? And so you're not having the inflation issues and the recessions, and you don't have these ebbs and flows and ups and downs. You do right now because it's speculative. It'll be interesting to see, as we continue going, does it become a currency? I personally don't think it'll be the world currency. I'm not sure that the infrastructure is set up to
Yeah.
handle that type of demand, but I could definitely see it being digital gold, and I could see it. If a lot of people in the US are holding Bitcoin and crypto when the US crashes, then those people are going to be pretty wealthy.
Yeah,
And it's
for
going to be
sure.
play
If you
out.
look at, I think there are two countries right now that have adopted Bitcoin as a form of currency. Like um, two,
Uh,
and I know the Venezuelan president has a very libertarian approach to business, and I don't know exactly if or when he's going to pursue that, but I know that he's talked about it, believes in it, thinks it's a possibility.
sure.
I do think we are in more of a worldwide situation, and people are looking to exchange things that are of value.
Yeah.
And so we're all starting to wake up to the idea that, and we've seen it happen in countries like Venezuela where they print themselves into an inflationary type
Sorry.
dynamic. Bless you.
Thank you.
And we think it's tough in the U.S. when inflation is 10% year over year, 2 years running, and now it's 2 or 3%. But over there, you're talking 37%. And so that's very material. And the thing I think as a U.S. citizen you want to be aware of, as some of the liquidity that have been locked up, and that's what we're talking about. When I say liquidity, when you get institutional investors into Bitcoin and you have these hodlers that are holding it, you're locking up the asset, thus driving the cost, or its value increases. And the
Yeah.
same thing happened when we started with the petrodollar. The US agreed to provide protection to Saudi Arabia as long as they transacted oil in the US dollar. So if that pressure starts to come down even slowly, you're going to see that there isn't as much money sitting on the US sidelines, which it has the same equivalent as printing money did, because there's going to be a lot more US dollars available into the system.
Yeah.
I'm not hoping for, I'm not wishing for, I know you're not, but it's been a great benefit of my lifetime that it has maintained its status as world reserve currency. I hope it continues to do so, but I got to be aware that it may not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and I don't know that we have time in this episode. It's definitely another episode we're going to get into, but don't forget that most countries are going to launch their own digital currency, right? And so
Oh,
now are you going to see an easy onboard, offboard where you're not using dollars anymore, but you can now go in and exit through your own digital currency from the country that you're a part of.
but we
Um,
have the digital yuan already active,
yeah,
correct?
yeah, for years now, years, yeah, and they're all over the place. I mean, when it came out like 2018, they were already testing in 4 provinces. And it's everything. They're a cashless society. You know, you use your phone, you just pay. They have some interesting dynamics of the way they do things over there, and it's definitely different than the U.S. That's
For
for sure.
sure. And I know Europe is approaching it as well. They're having their own dynamics in play, but I
Yeah.
think we're right on the precipice. I mean, so here, I'll put you on the spot. Not even a prediction. If you could depict the remainder of this year, a depiction, not a prediction. Do we see CBDCs get launched in 2024?
Oh, that's where you were going with it. I thought you were going with the price. I was
No, I'm
all
not
like,
gonna.
okay,
I'm not gonna do that to you. Not yet. It's too early. Too early.
CBDCs 2024. No. And the
Yeah.
reason I say no is you saw what a hot mess it was for the IRS to send checks, right, to all the elderly people, or when COVID first
During the
hit.
pandemic, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was all these people who didn't have banks. There's all these people who, I mean, you have so many unbanked that I think it's going to be tough. I think you have a little more of a barrier to entry with digital currency, no matter what digital currency you go to. So maybe end of 2024, but I don't think before 2025. But 2025 is the deadline that the central bank gave. So
And I don't know what I don't know, but I do know that there are more phones in the US than there are people, which
yeah,
means several people have multiple
we're doing
phones. Do you have
phone.
more than one? I only have one.
My husband used to have three when we first met.
Okay, so
You need three
so
phones.
so you know what I'm talking about there. And we all know right now for the phones, the smartphones, iPhones, Samsungs, whatever, you can do just about everything. I think that is going to be the place to onboard through and
Yeah,
to this banking system, which makes a lot of sense. We carry it with us almost everywhere we go, and that becomes the mechanism for the CBDCs.
yeah. Yeah, it's more or less a security issue, right? It's making sure that you can have the identity that you need to have before the CBDCs are distributed. It has more to do with like the actual functionality than, but we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe
Well,
they'll
yeah,
figure.
and I wonder often, not too often, whether or not it's going to be an event that
Oh,
sets
I
us up,
don't know. You think?
a calamity, a cyber pandemic. No?
Oh, that definitely. I feel like that'll happen at some point. Actually, my prediction, my
Yeah.
prediction is the next world war, whatever
Okay.
country wants to attack us will attack our Apple and Google Maps and just start sending us all in these random directions and nobody will go to the right place, right? Like I could see that happening. It would be hell. It would be insane trying to drive around and not know. And I think they could do it.
I think it can be done. I do think they're setting up for a security breach of some sort that could lock us down for several days, weeks. And, the one thing right now, take away internet, I don't know what would happen. I mean, I used to notice more road rage, but now, and I'm not saying, or even in line, like people waiting in line would get frustrated because it would take so long to go through a bank teller or go through a
You don't
grocery
take
line.
your kids to school then, do you? Because
What's
those
that?
you don't take your kids to school because those parents are not nice. I've
What?
never been in a line where people were nice. or accommodating. It's like, and the parents are bad. They're bad.
What? Yeah, what is up with that?
I don't know. I've seen almost fist fights at elementary schools over road rage for line drop off. It's like, you guys,
You
there's
know, and my family's in education, and I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was in the managing that part of the process of it. And
yeah,
they show up early, and I said, "Hey, I got a question for you. Why aren't they using the bus system?" Right? Like that. And
yeah,
I think it's I don't know. I don't have kids, so I don't want to speculate. But she goes, I think they just feel like it's a way to connect and stay connected to the daily events in their child lives. And I said, I know it's become so cliche though. Like on movies now, you see the adolescent, because right at that 13, 14-year-old age, you don't have your driver's license and you don't talk to your parents, and you ask them to drop you off somewhere where all your other friends
yeah,
can't see that you dropped them off. I don't know. There's got to be a more
yeah.
efficient way
Yeah.
to process that information,
And
or
it's,
filter it.
I know we're getting way off crypto and will come right back to it, but it's funny that you say that because literally this morning, my son is 15 and we're back from Christmas break. I wake up, I have a ton of stuff to do. I'm like, why don't, it's raining. I was like, instead of you taking the bus, why don't I just take you to get something to eat and I'll take you to school. And he's like, sure.
Yeah.
And we're talking and I had the epiphany of, this is the most time I've ever spent with him. I should do this every day. And that's how I can stay relevant in my kid's life. So there's truth to what you just said. That's a thing. It's
Well,
definitely a
so tell me this, does he or she put the earphones in,
all
or
the time. Yeah.
okay, and then secondarily they're either playing a video game,
Yeah.
maybe they're
On their
buying
phone.
Bitcoin, I don't know, they're doing something on their phone. That's, see, I brought it
Yeah.
back. Brought it
I
back.
wish you was doing more crypto. And listen, it's not for lack of trying. We're about to try to build a miner out of his old computer. So, yep, it's time to get it. I was like, you need to make some money. You're 15.
Cool. So I'm gonna spend a few seconds here, a minute or two, with beyond Bitcoin. I've noticed in the mainstream media a trend recently where they've started introducing Solana. Right? Historically it's been Bitcoin, Ethereum, and now we're starting to talk about Solana, and it's already up 7x in this most recent run. Do you know much about that particular platform? Any thoughts on the run that it's had? Where to take it from here?
Yeah, I know Solana had a really good year last year. Unfortunately, I have not kept up with, what exactly has happened, but more than likely, when you start seeing the notoriety, it means more people are adopting it. So whatever they've done, whatever type of blockchain they were able to make. So here's another thing that a lot of people don't understand, and actually, I'm kind of glad you brought this up.
Yeah,
Cryptocurrency, there is a difference between the blockchain and cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency is on a blockchain, right?
fair
And
enough.
sometimes you'll have coins like Solana or Ethereum, and they started off with making the coins, selling the coins, taking those coins, making the technology, right? Not always in that order, but essentially the cryptocurrency is used to fund the project, which is why they're saying it's a security more than likely. So that's used to fund the project. And then the project actually has to build whatever it says it's building, right? And so Solana could have raised money and done things within their coin. And now as they're building their blockchain, they're either making connections or they're making breakthroughs or they're making partnerships that are weighing to the validity of that blockchain and the ability for the use cases so that the stock or the price of the crypto goes up, right? So Bitcoin is one of the only ones, and Ethereum is, but most things don't. It's Ethereum is kind of a weird hybrid one, but Bitcoin's really the only
Oh,
one where it's like a one and done.
yeah, we can talk about Vitalik and that whole deal,
That's a whole
and
other thing.
there's a lot going on right now that is happening and it's one of the challenge when you have this idea that there's an immutable ledger, but you also have market participants. That's what we started with today, that
Yeah,
are manipulating the market in terms of, oh, I'd never do that, I'd never invest, and all of a sudden they invest.
yeah. Or a
And
part of the gigantic biggest transaction that's going to occur in the industry, but they would close it down.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of like at both extremes, and that's amazing. And you look at it, and I don't think he's trying to provide guidance to the market. I think he's trying to provide profit to his company,
Of course, as
right?
he should. He's the CEO. Like it's let's. we can hate him for it, but he's doing his job. So he'd be horrible if he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the fines that JP Morgan has paid through the years, and they never really disclose how much money they made. It's just, we're like, oh, okay, they paid millions
Yeah, it's
of dollars
insane.
in
I looked
fines.
a couple of years ago. I was looking at because uh community banks, right? Like the smaller
Yeah,
banks,
yeah.
some of their stuff is public and you can go and you can look it up. And so I was looking at mortgage rates profitability for a smaller bank. One quarter was $1 billion in profits. One quarter was $1 billion in profits. That's how much.
Okay. Well, no, yeah, that's what they do. Their job is to make the spread from the rate that the participant, the consumer, is going to pay. That's how we got into that whole mess. This was when what the white paper, the Satoshi white paper came out of.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you, Satoshi.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, Dionna, it's been a great episode. Thanks again for sharing thoughts and ideas about all-time high, AI, blockchain, cryptocurrency. I love the distinction you made today between blockchain and cryptocurrency. I think one of our next episodes has got to be about AI. You got a lot on your plate there. I know you know some things.
I do. It's gonna be
Can't
fun.
wait.